This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome. Hang on. I got to do that again. Stop.
This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome. It is Tuesday, April 7th, and today's hot topic discussion with an industry expert is with Tony Stergio, shareholder, Andrews Myers PC, about documenting Families First Coronavirus Response Act, paid sick leave, and FMLA. I'm Brianna Wright of the American Subcontractors Association, and Tony, welcome. Thanks for taking
Brianna.
this morning and helping us through this. So the beginning of April, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act required employees with less than 500 individuals to provide paid sick leave and expanded family and medical leave for reasons related to COVID-19. So employers have to provide up to 2 weeks of paid sick leave if the employee is subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine order, if the employee has been advised by a health professional to self-quarantine, if they are experiencing COVID-19 symptoms and are seeking medical diagnosis, or if they are caring for an individual under a quarantine order by the government or health provider. Additionally, the companies are required to give up to 12 weeks if the employee is caring for someone who school or childcare is closed. Per the Act, companies who provide the sick or FMLA expanded leave due to COVID-19 will receive a reimbursement via tax credit. The uncertainty for our members and for other companies is how to document this properly. What do you need to tell your employees that you need, and what do you do if the documentation that you're requiring isn't provided by your employees?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to need that documentation to get the tax credit at the end of the quarter. So, if someone is subject to a quarantine, the quarantine order itself is going to be sufficient documentation. A lot of our employers, however, are essential. So a lot of those employers are exempted from those quarantine orders. So the quarantine order, some of them, for example, in Dallas and Austin, exempt certain classes of people if they're over 60 or if they have certain exemptions. Those quarantine orders, if the person falls within those categories, would be acceptable. If an employee is diagnosed by a medical provider, the medical diagnosis itself would be sufficient. If the employee is having symptoms and is seeking a diagnosis and hasn't gotten a diagnosis yet, they're going to have to provide a statement that says, look, I have these symptoms and I'm seeking a diagnosis, and a telemedicine type of diagnosis is probably going to be sufficient for you to be able to say, hey, I gave this leave and I'm entitled to a tax credit. The final one is for the care of a child whose school is closed or the health or the child care is unavailable. And obviously a school closure notice or a notice from an established child care provider would be sufficient. Or if you have an individual child care provider, a statement from either that provider or you that says my child care provider can no longer take care of my child. The other provision is that, in order to be entitled to leave, you need to be able to say, and there's no other responsible adult who can do this, so it's my responsibility. That would be a statement from the individual saying there's no one else out there who can do this. I don't think you necessarily need that for the tax credit, but you should get that from the individual if you think, for example, the individual has never had primary responsibility for the child, but is now saying they need paid leave. You can ask for that statement. That statement will eventually be sent to the government, and you should advise the employee that they need to be honest, because you're not just talking to your employer, you're talking to the federal government, who is eventually going to credit the employer for the paid leave they're claiming.
Okay, and so that's going to go for the up to the 12 weeks for the child care as well. So it's not just this. Oh, that is the 12 weeks for the child care. Is it up to
right? And the child care is going to be You can get 80 hours under the Emergency Sick Leave Act for care for a child, and then you can get 12 weeks of pay of leave to care for a child under the Emergency Family Leave Act. 10 of those weeks are compensated. So, they can claim the first 2 weeks of paid childcare at 2/3 from the Emergency Sick Leave Act, and then an additional 10 weeks under the Emergency Family Leave Act for care for a child. That's at 2/3 their regular pay, up to $200 a day.
Okay. And so this is not up to companies to decide if somebody really has the symptoms or if they really have to take care of their kids. What's up to the companies is to get the documentation, document it, and then that way they can get the tax credit. Correct?
Exactly. And that's what you really want. If you're going to be given this either 80 hours of paid leave under the Emergency Sick Leave Act or 10 weeks of paid leave under the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Act, you want to be able to get that tax credit at the end so you're not footing the bill.
Gotcha. Okay. Relating to this, is there anything else that you're getting a lot of questions from your clients that is a confusion or any of that, or just when you start going down in the dirt like that, it just gets really detailed?
Well, a lot of questions have come up about whether the leave can be intermittent, and the leave can be intermittent for the care of a child whose school is closed or childcare is unavailable if the employer agrees. So if the employer agrees that, like, look, if you're doing a week on, week off with your significant other, we can do an intermittent type leave for childcare, or it can actually be down to the hours. It's like I can dedicate 2 hours a day to my job, but the other time I'm going to have to be with my child. So you can do that, but it's the employer's option. And then the employer can obviously give the 2/3 paid leave for the time that the employee is not working, and a full salary for the time that the employee is working intermittently. But that is going to be up to the employer.
Okay. Great. I think that's it. I think that summarizes the question. And so I'd like to end with something that we do at our meetings called Tell Me Something Good. So especially right now in this crazy time, tell me something good.
Well, let's see. I mean, I actually, when I get home from work now, the kids who have been cooped up all day actually want to talk to me. So that's been like a really nice development to come in, walk home, and say, "Hey, Dad, how are you?" It's like they've been on their video all day and whatnot, and they're kind of sick of it, and they're seeking human interaction, even from me. So that's been really good.
I love that. That is awesome. All right. So thank you so much for taking your time today. I appreciate it, and you stay safe out there.